All right. Hi, guys. I'm feeling a little short. Am I in a weird position? I don't know. So you're seeing us a little differently today. Typically, there are two screens, kind of dual monitors here, because we are typically filming the podcast in two separate locations. But I'm really lucky today. And by the way, I am Megan. I am the owner of the Needlepoint Clubhouse here in St. Louis, Missouri. I am actually sitting here in a lively shop. So you're getting a full-on experience today. Together with my friend Melissa McLeod, who owns the Wool and the Floss in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, we've started doing this podcast. And as I was just referring to, the Pointing It Out podcast is typically in two separate locations, and we're interviewing someone from afar. And we started that because we were in the middle of a pandemic. Yep. And it just kind of worked. But I am so lucky that Mark Craddock, say it fast and it doesn't make any difference.
That's right. That's right. Whatever vowels you want to throw in.
Yeah, was traveling through just before the Thanksgiving holiday. And so he decided to stop by. And this isn't Mark's first stop at the Needlepoint Clubhouse, fortunately. And so when Mark Craddock says, I'm in town, I want to stop by, you say, oh, please do. So I am delighted to have Mark here to chat with us on the Pointing It Out podcast. And I'm trying to think of how we should start. So why don't I start with this? I just learned of Mark it hasn't even been a year.
About a year, yeah.
Maybe 8 months or so. And it was because I'm on Instagram a lot and I'm tooling around and I see this cool canvas with all these beards on it. And I'm like, what is this? And it's someone hosting a beards class. And this man called Mark is teaching this beards class. And I'm like, who is this? I have to have this. This is so cool. The presentation was awesome. And anyway, and so I started digging, and it turned out for me that my friend Connie Camp in Nashville had already had Mark on her docket. So I was able to confidently call her and say, hey, who is this guy? And will you tell me if he's good? But unbeknownst to me, Mark has been in the industry and stitching for quite a long time and has a very awesome career of his own happening. So there's a lot to learn about this man called Mark Craddock. And so I am excited for you to meet him. So Mark, let's start here. You began stitching when you were...
Well, in my family, we all kind of began this as kids because we were very fortunate that we all grew up on the same street. And so I had a lot of cousins and a lot of friends on the same street. And after school every day, the grandmothers had to kind of take care of us till the parents got home from work, and they were always looking for something for us to do. And they were all into their crafts and the things that they did. And so they kind of made us learn those too. So probably the first thing I ever did was maybe one of those Kleenex box covers on plastic canvas that everybody did.
Yes.
Along with probably those loom pot holders.
Oh
and
yeah,
these
my daughter still makes those. Those are actually really good pot holders.
Oh, really?
They actually work.
We just knew they were something to do in the afternoon. Normally, we were told to get our butts out in the street and play.
Exactly.
But
right.
on a cold, rainy day or whatever, we had to come up with something. Everybody in our family was pretty much kind of artsy in some way or the other. My mother and her sisters grew up during the Andrews Sister era, and they could break into 4-part song with my grandmother on just about any tune. You've never lived until you've heard the Phantom of the Opera sung in Andrew's Sister Harmony. Just saying.
That's so cool.
With my sister running around with a roll of aluminum foil hollering, sing for me, Christine. I remember this on a Christmas at some point. So there was always something nutty and crazy going on.
So was it your grandmother who was a stitcher, or one of the other, so like aunts or other grandmothers on the street? Or
at least dabbled.
Because you said, from what I remember, you learned to needlepoint, you learned to cross stitch, you know how to knit? No?
Yeah,
yes?
They did a little bit of everything
that?
with us, trying to keep us all busy. Boys and girls, everybody in the family was like, all right, kids, today we're making these kind of cookies, or we're going to do this. Or
I got it. And so this was where? In what city?
Marietta, Georgia.
In Georgia. Okay.
All of my aunts and uncles worked for the Lockheed Company.
Okay.
And so they had all moved here together and moved in on the same street.
I love that. So you start doing this in grade school, let's call it. And did any of these little hobbies and things kind of stick with you, or was it not until a little bit later in life that you
They
sort of
really
picked these things
did.
back up?
They, there were things that kept us busy. And primarily I was a musician. By the way, I'm a high school band director.
We were going to get to that. Yes. One of my favorite parts of Mark's life.
So, there were things that were, like when you made the rooster out of beans and you glued them on the burlap just to have things to do.
Yes.
And they were, I guess, explorations, and they kept my mind open to it. And later, much later, one of my grandmothers was working on something that she didn't finish, and I kind of tinkered with it to finish it up.
Picked it up. Okay.
One of my other aunts was big into those crochet doilies and crochet. So these things were going
tatting
on.
Or some kind of other needle art.
So we tinkered with all these things. And at some point I went into a shop and said, I need help finishing up one of these projects.
Okay.
And Susan Roberts, it was Avis Adarius in Marietta, which was a cross stitch store.
Okay.
And she said, you're pretty good at this. Why don't you finish with some interesting stitches instead of just some of this other stuff? And she branched me out, and there we went.
And
from that point forward, it was needlepoint.
So you don't have a formal education in I guess I'd call it media arts, but you have a formal education in music?
Right.
Okay.
I've got a French degree and a music degree. And so became a high school teacher. I worked in Atlanta at a private Catholic school as a band director for middle schoolers and high schoolers. That's Marist School, by the way.
All
Get my plug in for Marist.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, that is my prime love, my primary job. Wouldn't give it up for anything.
So you've been teaching band or music in some form
ever since
high
college.
School, since college. Okay. And where did you go to college?
I went to college at Jacksonville State University in Alabama.
Oh my gosh.
And then down to Georgia State, and then went to the Sibelius Academia in Finland for a bit. And somebody
that?
had to go there, Had finished friends. They said, why not come over for a summer, take some classes? So, all right, let's do it.
I love that. So you start teaching, you're teaching band, you are doing some needlepoint, it sounds like, kind of maybe taking some classes or visiting.
Well, at this point, basically just messing with it. I was teaching Welsh for the St. David Society because we've got some Welsh heritage. And
teaching Welsh.
It's a language. So
say something to me in Welsh. The fire department doesn't know what to do. They're coming after
They
you.
heard Welsh, they came on over.
What did you say?
Nadolig Samhain, that's Merry Christmas coming up.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
I know a lot of people think Welsh is just English with a funny accent, kind of like Irish, but
I don't
Irish
think
and Welsh are different languages.
Oh my goodness, this is fascinating. Okay, I was never a language person. I just couldn't, that part of my brain didn't work. And this guy's saying he speaks Welsh, French, German, English, Spanish.
I tinker, I play with things.
That's amazing. Okay, so you're teaching Welsh. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I just couldn't let that pass.
So I was teaching the Welsh in the band, and that took up a lot of what I wanted to do for the time. And then got back into it, found some things. I was on a trip to New York and saw some things and said, hey, I'd kind of like to do that. It was an interesting thing. And I remember being in that shop, and they said I could never buy that canvas anywhere but with them. It was a select canvas.
An exclusive, we like to say these days. Yeah.
And it was about $900. And I said, ooh,
that's a lot of money.
Can't get that. And it was a pillow this square. It was a Melissa Shirley canvas.
Oh, wow.
Well, got back to Atlanta and said, I just saw this and it was stunning. And they went, oh, I can get you that for like $195. And back in that time. And
East Coast.
Was like, are you kidding? So ordered it, worked on that, and kind of got hooked again. And so started going to Nancy's at Atlanta Needlepoint. And she said, you ought to take a couple of classes. They offer them down here. And I took that class with David McCaskill that we were talking about.
Yeah, David McCaskill, for those of you who don't know, I should think about getting him on the podcast now that I say that. David's
a great guy.
Been in the industry for a really long time. And David thinks in almost like 3D, like he can see things happening layered, and it's kind of fascinating. And so to me, it was a little intimidating. He was one of the first classes I took. So you just jumped right in, and were you a little intimidated by it, or you were just like, I got this?
I had no idea. I walked in, I'd never taken a class. I just kind of self-taught, looked at some books, figured things out, what the grandmothers had shown, thought it can't be that bad. And luckily it wasn't. I mean, I really had a good time, and the class was about backgrounds.
Oh, cool.
And, it was kind of an infinity thing. It was one of the things that he had invented.
Sure.
And had a lot of chances to play. And I really got hooked in the geometric architectural nature of it. And so they said, well, you took this, you ought to take a class with Tony.
And by that, we're saying Tony Maneri, who is really, can we call him like a savant in the needlepoint world?
Oh my gosh, you can. I mean,
is that
if
fair?
the man has just walked down the row, he can tell you what number every Craddock is, what number every thread is. Brilliant, brilliant. And he's another one of those just brilliant abstract thinkers.
Yes.
That can really see it in his head before it goes down. And that class scared me. And it was the French ribbons class. Some of you, I'm sure, have taken that class before, and I was scared to death.
Yeah.
And when I saw the stuff, and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be way over my head. And again, as the class was going, I'm like, I'm getting it. Yep. And really got hooked at that point on the possibilities.
So you were taking classes at what shop? Was it at, you were in Atlanta then? No.
That was in Atlanta. BAM had a shop in Atlanta.
Okay. I won't know the name of the, I was just curious because some people, those who are watching probably frequent a lot of these shops, or
right,
who would then maybe even in that class, who knows?
It could have been in the class. Probably were.
So you take these classes and you begin to kind of expand your mind around kind of different needlepoint techniques and harder, if we'll call it that, more complicated stitches, more complex stitches.
Yep.
And then did you just kind of then, I guess, started frequenting, going back to the needlepoint shop and
I became a frequent flyer at the needlepoint shop, and for a while I was a frequent flyer, and I hope I still am a frequent flyer with Tony. Yeah. And so I took with Amy Bunger. I love her. She's got such great ideas, and she's such a sweet lady.
Yep.
And with anybody I could get my hands on, because I was thinking I would really like to see how other people think.
Yeah.
And how their heads work. So Meredith, Carolyn Hedges Baird, how do you think? How do things go together?
Yep.
And all of a sudden my mind started going in those ways too. And I was like, all right, I've taken the drugs, I've gotten out there, my mind is expanded.
Yes. And now I can kind of, and so obviously you were able to kind of layer the way that you teach too. I mean, part of teaching is communicating.
Right.
And even if you can see it, sometimes people can't then, those who do teach, those who don't, how does that saying go? So you're able though to kind of just say, I'm learning this, I can teach this. And I think that's one of the things that I learned when we took your class is that Mark's just really a great communicator and has a lot of humor and can also redirect. If you're not thinking in the way that he thinks you might be thinking, he can kind of redirect and give it to you in a different light. I think
that's one of those things about being a band director. Yeah. It's not always going to hit every kid exactly the same way.
Yes.
And we're always taught to think, or at least, and I teach my leadership kids this way, try to think of a visual, an audio, and a telekinetic method of, if they can see it, if they can hear it, if they can do it, make it happen in more than one way, then you can communicate with almost any kind of student.
Yeah, that's really cool. And that's something I picked up on right away. So obviously your friend Janine picked up on that as well, because she looked at you and said, dude, you can stitch, you are charismatic, I want you to start teaching classes. I mean, is that kind of how it went?
I wouldn't say it exactly that way, paraphrase away. Janine Weiner, who owned In Stitches in Buckhead in Atlanta, said, will you come in and teach some techniques classes because we're missing that little component? Will you come in and do this? And I said, sure, let's give it a shot. I was, again, as you said before, kind of trepidatious. I'm like, I've never taught needlepoint. I'm a band director. Let's see what happens. And got in and realized, all right, it's no different than teaching band. It's teaching.
Yep.
And at that point, Janine, the first thing she hired me to do was a class on overdyed threads.
And I hope we have our visuals here, if we can grab those. So something that I think is so fabulous about Mark's, so he has all these technique classes, but what he's done is created these really great visual aids. And I think a lot of, we're also tactile, and like you say, we all learn differently, but this is such a great visual appeal. So hold that up can you see this? So he's created these boards. And so he uses this in his class to kind of go through and explain the technique and have like a model for what he's teaching. So the other thing that's cool is that this is a very great marketing technique. So for example, I see, let's show the beards that I keep referring to. And in fact, that's why I did my plaid. I'm trying to be like kind of holiday-esque today, because Mark, really when I think of Mark, I think of him as the beard man. So some of you may have seen these boards that he has created on Instagram. And so again, this is a great marketing technique, because you can take a snapshot of that and somebody says, whoa, that looks awesome. And look at all those different types of beards and different techniques. And really all he's done is taken a lot of different stitches and put them onto one board that kind of explains how to use them in a small area and a lot of like, mostly, I guess we'd say Santa's beards. I mean, that's obviously what this one in particular is. But that's why I think these are working out pretty well. So you started with, I think what you told me is you kind of started with this over dye thread technique class.
Correct.
And then kind of talk me through some of, so you can do beading, what are some of the other, I don't know that I have the list of things that you teach.
Well, it's kind of interesting because again,
evolving.
I know when it keeps evolving, when Janine said, well, you teach this, and of course, being a school teacher, I had to have worksheets, I had to have a little booklet that I had made and this thing, and said, all right, so we're gonna be making numbers 1, 7, 8, 12, but you're also going to learn the other things that are in there.
Got you.
So people did the worksheets, people stitched from the guides, people made the things, and she said, all right, so what are we going to do next? And I'm not really sure what that next thing was. I can't remember. I just remember this was the first one.
Sure.
And I always think that way. You've got to have worksheets, a booklet to take home to be able to, and there has to be more in that than can be done in the class, because what if you've already done the technique that I'm teaching?
Right.
Then please go to 2 and 3 because they're similar but different, and work your way into something maybe you don't know how to do.
And one thing I'm learning about Mark is he doesn't let any grass grow under his feet. So he doesn't want you to sit there and waste any time. He's saying, you've done 1, go to 3 and 4.
Go to 3 and 4, take care of that. I'll be on to 5, which is maybe a new technique for you in a minute.
Yeah, that's cute. So over dye threads, back to this. So the beards class is really a combination of like couching, knots, particular
Beading,
stitches,
threads,
beading, twisting, turkey work, all kinds of.
It's a little bit of everything. There's so many different techniques you can use of letting the thread work for you. Meaning that maybe the thread can do your effect without actually having to know or do too much, which is fantastic.
Right. It's all about kind of the position of it and the type of thread that you're using too. And so you're able to kind of walk people through different stitches, even using different types of threads, and it'll look
right. The same stitch done in 4 different threads looks different.
Exactly. So I'm trying to remember when you were here, we did beards, we did, what else did we do?
Oh, dear God, you would ask me that, wouldn't you?
We did beading. I'm just trying to remember some of the other.
I'm trying to remember too. Did we do the background classes? No,
but that sounds fun.
Background is fun. We did beading. Did we do the Gene Hilton stitches?
I don't think so, but that sounds cool. Just pull out any of those boards. Let's take another.
Pull out anything. Okay, well, there's some, it's kind of hard to see. That's some black work. There's a black work as part of the backgrounds class.
Do this a little bit closer. So yeah, so this is so we talk about black work. And so basically for those people who aren't familiar with black work is just a technique where you can't have any drag, right, Mark? So you can't, it's all open.
It's open behind, so you can't drag
really,
back there.
It should look kind of close on both sides, right?
Maybe trellises also from the background class.
Trellises. Whoopsie,
love trellises.
Oh, trellises.
Trellis work is a lot of fun.
That is way cool. So you have all these techniques now, all these different boards and all these classes developed. And so you are now, talk to me. So I was trying to like step back. I'm like, okay, so I saw Mark on Instagram and I was like, have to have the beards class at my store. This looks awesome. So you really just started this kind of teaching. And the way you described it to me was somebody put the beards class on Instagram and your phone started ringing. And this was just in 2000, we said 20.
Well, I'd been teaching after Janine closed her shop in Buckhead, she kind of handed me over to Jan at the Nimble Needle in Atlanta. And I always say she kind of became my pimp for a little while because she had to kind of keep up with me. But she and Connie from Nashville Needleworks, I worked for them both simultaneously on weekends for about maybe a year or 2.
Wow.
And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And at that point, Katie Jones called and said, can you come do a class? Do you feel safe doing it? On that Santa Beards thing.
And this is Augusta,
Georgia, and she posted it on
on
the
I think
web,
it was Instagram or Facebook.
maybe last January. It's been within the year, and all of a sudden the phone started ringing, and I'm somewhere every weekend.
And I will tell you, I guess what I started with at the top was I don't think a lot of people know. So forgive me, but people know the Tony Maneri, right? People know David McCaskill in the needlepoint world, but all of a sudden Mark Craddock starts popping up. And so I just don't think people have had a chance to really get to know you because it has only been a year-ish.
Really 9 months,
that you've been teaching. And so I'm here to attest to the fact that Mark is a great teacher, has a ton of great ideas. And I think there's a lot ahead for you.
Thank you so much. I'm kind of embarrassed. You can't see it on camera, but I'm blushing.
No, you're great. So you were scheduled some before COVID. We were discussing, we actually had Mark here summer. So it was like in effect kind of during COVID, but it was in that like, oh, the numbers are low. Okay, I think we're safe enough to have this class. Let's open the doors and get some air going through here. And then, kind of things sort of ticked back up again, unfortunately. But of course, none of us can predict the future. But I think what you are trying to predict right now is looking out through the summer, because since you're a teacher and a band teacher, you're busy during the school year, but you've got really kind of time in the summer.
That's it.
But talk about, so this guy is so fascinating, I'm just telling you. And this has nothing to do with needlepoint. But so Mark is headed to Germany to teach.
I'll be in France during spring break, teaching at our sister school. I work in a Catholic school with an order called the Marists, and they have schools all over the world. And so normally I'm at the French school in Lyon, France, which, by the way, if you've never been, the food is amazing. And I like that city even better than Paris. I mean, it's like Paris is like New York, but Lyon is like Chicago.
Yes, kind of secret, a little more secret.
A little more secret and just as exciting and just as big.
Awesome.
So I'll be supposedly working there again during our spring break. But of course, Austria and Germany are on lockdown again, and Belgium and Netherlands. So we'll see what happens if this new uptick hits us here. I don't know. And then back in Germany in the summer, working in our sister school in Passau.
And you teach, when you're there, what do you teach?
English.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not music. English.
No, I mostly teach short story. I read ridiculous amounts, and it's I love short stories and grammar, and it's a lot of fun.
So this is random, but what kind of English? What are you having them read? So are they reading like Shakespeare in Germany?
Well,
this has nothing to do with needlepoint, but I'm just suddenly fascinated.
The more advanced, there's a really good story I use for my 11th graders over there. Called The Machine Stops by, I just lost the name of the guy. He's the same guy that wrote Room with a View. It'll come to me in a minute or it won't.
Okay.
But
so it's more modern literature.
They're far enough along, and with the younger kids, the fifth Forrester, that's it.
The Peanut Gallery is helping out.
I love that story, and they love it too, and it opens a lot of discussion. For the younger kids, I've got a couple of Alfred Hitchcock things.
Oh, cool.
That are stories written for kids that are like 11 and 12 here that can work for like 14-year-olds over there.
That is so cool.
So we just have a good time.
So have you ever thought about putting some needlepoint into the curriculum?
Well,
anywhere?
Over there, I do teach needlepoint for the moms over there. Some of the people come in, they got interested in, I don't know if I can find it fast enough, but I do a little ribbon embroidery class that I also teach like in Germany. Just an introduction, and have a piece of paper just take all my stuff over there, and they like to take these kind of classes too.
Look at how beautiful this is. So oh my gosh, this is amazing. So these are, okay, I want to just double back here. So you're in Germany, and it's the mothers of some of the German students at the Marist school. Right. Is that what you're saying? Right. Okay. Oh my gosh. And so are these people who have just heard about the work, like kind of side hustle that you have?
Yeah, my side hustle. A couple of the teachers that had come over here a few years ago, I was teaching this class, in fact, with Janine.
Okay.
And so I invited them to come spend the Saturday with us and learn to do it. And they were like, oh, this is so cool. Can we do this when you come back over?
Oh,
sure, why not?
Oh my gosh. Well, this is absolutely gorgeous. Do you draw this canvas out for them too?
Right.
Oh my gosh. So tell me, what is your favorite of the classes? I mean, you now have quite a host of classes, like more than I even knew about. I'm sorry.
It's about 15, yeah.
Oh my gosh. What is your favorite one to teach?
I love the needle embroidery.
Really?
Because this is a class that most people have never done much with. And it really works. It comes out, you can mess it up. I'm not saying you can't mess it up, but it's a high impact, and you can use it on a lot of different canvases. It doesn't just have to be grandma's rosette soaps kind of a
Well, I
thing.
think when we talk about ribbon work, Melissa, my partner in crime at the Wool and the Floss, she's a little more of an avid ribbon worker than I am. But what we always try to say is that ribbon looks beautiful even if you mess it up. And I think that's kind of what you're saying.
Very
you kind of just like to
forgiving.
have it, let it live its own life.
It lives its own life. And this little piece has about 12 stitches on it that are fairly hard to mess up. I'm not saying you can't, but
so it looks like you've got a woven rose, you've got packed stem, you've got some kind of maybe Japanese ribbon. Is that, so there's just these
Japanese stitch, French knots on a stalk,
okay,
ribbon stitch, leaf stitch. They're fairly basic.
So these are things that you could also do with, and we were talking about this just a second ago earlier, which is you could do a lot of these stitches with another thread and it would look
absolutely
different, but you didn't have the technique in your
absolutely
back pocket. So a lot of this is translatable as far as one class to the other, but it's just in the presentation, and I think you're just a master at the presentation. This is so
thanks.
cool. Yeah.
But something like this, we all, well, I don't guess we all do, but a lot of those canvases that have little houses on them and gardens, you can take your canvas to the next level with a simple technique like this. So it's usable in a lot of places.
Talk to me about what your favorite ribbons are to work with. Do you know the brands, or does that mean anything to you? So like River Silks or
I use a lot of Treenway, Dinky dyes. I like Treenway. Tony Maneri pushed me over into those.
Okay.
Dinky dyes are great.
Yep.
I love basically all of them, but River Silks work great in this technique.
And this is probably more of the 4mm than the 7.
Well, the roses on here are 7, and some of the like this one and this one that you can't see.
That you can't see. So he's talking about these, and then you were also talking about.
So there's a mix of 7 and 4 on here.
Yeah, so this is really cool. And so you think this is really your favorite, and there's some beading in here too.
A little bit of beading in there too.
I guess I better pick up my
I love the trellises and the backgrounds. The background class a lot of people love because so many people get stuck on backgrounds and they get scared of it and think, well, what can I do that's not going to overwhelm the foreground? And background's supposed to be background, so I shouldn't do this, but then a trellis would be great.
That's right.
But they're a little scared of it.
Open, and some air, kind of makes it a little airier than
that's it.
What people, yeah. So you've got about 15 classes. You are going to hopefully be back here at the Needlepoint Clubhouse this summer. We're working on schedules, so stay tuned. And you've got a schedule, it sounds like, kind of beginning to build, maybe back to Nashville, some places in the South. So that's coming.
Yeah, I try during the school year mostly stick close to Atlanta because I think the farthest I get out during the school year is Charleston, Atlanta, Nashville, because
driving distance, basically.
It's not really worth it. I've done a couple where you have to fly out on a Saturday morning, teach all day Saturday, Sunday, fly back on Sunday night, hit the school on Monday morning. That's killer.
That's hard. That's very hard. And so this might not even be a fair question, and I didn't prep you before, but so in 9 months or 8 months, I know that this has been a little more than 9 months work, these boards, and thinking and developing over several years. But in the last 8 or 9 months, you've had this all of a sudden like, oh yeah, I get to travel and teach. And so do you have aspiration for what you want classes to look like, or are there other classes you want to develop, or is there something you're like, oh, I wish I could do this? Or
absolutely. I've got a list going where people say, I would really like to have a class in this or that. And so my list is going of what to develop, because of course, this is a short-lived kind of industry. Once everybody's taken this class, you're not going to take it again. So you've got to have somewhere else to go. And what can I do with that? So is there a level 2 ribbon class that can get me to the even next level, learn more stitches, something more advanced? Well, of course there's going to be.
Yeah, right.
And so all of these 15 classes that I have are mostly introductory, whereas some of them can do the second level.
Very cool. And so you want to keep traveling in the summer, so the hope kind of, it's kind of I don't know how you do it.
This is a misnomer. I have to say, traveling doesn't really mean I'm going to St. Louis to see what's there and enjoy myself, because this is my second trip now in my life to St. Louis. I have yet to see anything in St. Louis other than this corner where the shop is. But let me just tell you about the bakery across the street.
Yeah,
so I have discovered that.
Yeah. So so I need to do a better job of hosting Mark, is what he's saying. So if you want to get Mark to come to visit you, you have to kind of create an itinerary. It sounds like. But you do a lot of travel for fun. And again, COVID has kind of stifled that.
I mean, there's so much of the world to see, and I got to get back out there. I've only got so many more years before my sell-by date.
Yeah. So we hope that you continue to teach and travel and I guess I need to ask you this too. Are you stitching on anything of your own that you're just enjoying that you want to share with us? I didn't ask you to bring, I don't even know if you have.
Well, I can probably say this safely, but the kids all know it anyway, because over the years, a few years ago, I was particularly close with a group of seniors that graduated from the band, and they had stuck with me for all 7 years there at Marist. And so for those like 10 kids, I made them all a keychain of their school that they were going to go to.
Oh, cool.
And of course, the next year, the kids were like, are we getting a keychain? Are we getting a keychain?
Oh,
so that's turned into a thing. People in my family, I was at a Georgia game last week, and you think you could whip me out one of those Georgia belts? Sure, I'll do that tonight.
Just whip it out.
Yeah, that's only 40 hours of work and a couple of $100. All right.
Gosh.
All the godchildren have got to get Christmas stockings. Things I like. I love stitching Halloween for myself.
That's fun.
Big Halloween advocate.
So do you have a big stash, or are you kind of like?
Oh, you don't even want to know.
Okay, good. It makes me feel better every time somebody says that, because every once in a while I run into somebody that says, no, I don't need a stash. I just stitch something up and then.
I was so good for years. I was like, I'll finish a project before I start a project. Now I've got at least 50 things on stretcher bars, plus all of these class things. It's a nightmare.
Oh my gosh. Hate to put you on the spot, but any particular designers that you like to stitch? You mentioned Susan Roberts earlier.
There are so many good things. I've got I love Melissa Shirley Halloween stuff.
Oh yeah.
I'm dying to do. She's got a great nativity.
Oh yes.
I bought one piece of it so far. Melissa, don't get rid of that nativity time. Buy all the pieces.
He hasn't had time to buy them all yet.
I haven't had time to buy the pieces. There are colors of praise that, because of the colors in it, is just so amazing.
Yep.
I mean, I can hardly think of anybody that doesn't have something I want to make, because there's so many good designers out there.
The same here. I have affinity for real artistry, and I think Melissa Shirley is one of the best in the industry.
Absolutely.
So she's amazing. But well, I really appreciate your time. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that I haven't asked you about that you think you better share with your
We could sit
fans?
Here for hours. That's all I have to say.
Mark has a lot of good stories, and I hope that you have a chance to visit him as he's traveling around this summer, and just get a chance to kind of glean information from somebody who has a great mind. And I will tell you the other thing, I should have brought this over here, but Mark
I don't know about that great mind.
Well, I think you do. And has the ability to just chart things out so that you can see them, make it fun, make it relevant to the piece that you're working on. And so I can't say enough about the teacher that you are and the person that you are. And so thank you for making time during this holiday week to come and spend it with us.
Thank you. This has been a treat.
Good. Well, the treat was the bakery across the street.
The treat was the bakery across the street. I'm not going to lie about that.
Well, so thank you all for joining us for this great conversation with Mark Craddock. And Mark, do you have, I guess, are we Instagramming, Facebooking? Are you websiting? Are you just like a secret?
Really funny. I'm a
social media
secret.
guy?
I do social media, but people always are saying, could I join? I'm like, well, if you want to see pictures of my godkids, and we ate dinner last night, because I don't really do anything, but I guess I'm going to have to start a special one for Needlepoint.
We're going to work on that for Mark, because there's a lot for him to show you. Yeah. There you go. Actually, the truth is, Mark and I do have kind of a little bit of a project up our sleeves with the Beards class. His techniques are amazing, and we want to be able to try to get that out to more people. Stay tuned for a potential canvas that you might be able to use, and a book that we might be able to do. So there's a lot here with this wonderful man. And so stay with us. But have a great, I guess now this is coming out on Saturday. We'll tell you the truth. It's Tuesday right now, and this podcast is coming out on Saturday. So we will have been like full bellies,
Have a great Thanksgiving 2 days ago, but eat your leftovers.
Yeah, that's right. Enjoy your leftovers while you're watching this podcast. So
that's right.
And if you haven't already subscribed, which most of you have, and we appreciate that, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. That helps us to get more information out to more people, and to introduce wonderful people like Mark to more stitchers. So happy holidays. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.